April 17, 1943, 26,000 feet above the North Sea. The sky is a cold, polished sheet of steel. The kind of altitude where the air feels thin even inside a pressured cockpit. A formation of B-17 flying fortresses pushes east, engines droning in perfect, heavy harmony, and just off their wingtips, slicing through contrails like a silver needle, flies a fighter, and no one in the Luftwaffe has taken seriously the P-51 Mustang. Its wings shine in the morning sun, sleek, narrow, and almost delicate. Too delicate, according to the German officers who had studied the first captured models. They'd smirked at the bubble canopy, the long, graceful fuselage, and that pointed snout that looked more like a racer from a county fair than a frontline interceptor. A toy, a flashy American experiment, down below, at a Luftwaffe command post near Oldenburg. That same opinion echoes through the smoke-filled briefing room. Maps lie open, pins marking the familiar routes of American bomber streams. As an operations officer points to projected interception points, Oberleutnant Walter Schuck leans back in his chair, lips curled in amused disbelief. "So this is the new Mustang?" he asks, tapping the blurry reconnaissance photo. Long wings, skinny frame. It looks like something a child would carve from balsa wood. Laughter rolls around the table. Even Hauptmann Ernst Wilhelm Reinert, with nearly 100 victories to his name, shakes his head. "The Americans keep inventing machines," he mutters, "but none can face a Focke-Wulf or a Messerschmitt at altitude. They should stick to building cars." But as the briefing continues, an aide mentions a new rumor. Some Mustangs have been refitted with Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, the same power plant that drives the Spitfire to its legendary performance. The room quiets just slightly, but not enough to change anyone's mind. No American airframe can handle that engine. One officer scoffs. They'll rip themselves apart. Back in the sky, Captain Jim Browning, flying lead Mustang in his unit, rocks gently in the cold turbulence. Frost creeps along the inside of his canopy. He feels the vibration of the Merlin. Under his boots a smooth, hungry growl. He checks his gauges, then looks ahead at the endless blue. He knows the Germans expect the escort fighters to turn back soon. They always expect it. Until now, the bombers never had protection beyond the Rhine. Until now, German aces attacked with freedom. Browning glances at the navigational timer fixed to his panel. Not today. Today the Mustang keeps going dot as the formation crosses the German frontier. Schuck and Reinert scramble from their ready room, running for their Bf-109s as the sirens wail across the airfield. Ground crews yank chocks free. Propellers whirl to life. The familiar smell of fuel and cold metal fills the morning air. Schuck climbs into his cockpit, tightening his harness. He still feels certain the day will go as expected. A few bombers downed, a few escorts driven off. Standard interception. But as his squadron climbs into the bright upper air, a flicker of silver appears far above the bomber box, staying with them, matching pace, refusing to fall back. "That's impossible," Reinert mutters over the radio. "They should have turned around by now." But they haven't. The toy's still there dot, and as the German fighters bank toward the bombers, every pilot in the formation notices the same unsettling detail. The Mustang is climbing, higher, faster, closing in. Schuck feels the first thin ribbon of doubt coil in his stomach dot, then the American fighters roll inverted and dive straight toward them. The Germans' first taste of disbelief is only seconds away. The first warning comes as a glint, just a flicker of sunlight off metal high above the German formation. But in the thin air, 28,000 feet, even a flicker can mean death. Oberleutnant Walter Schuck tightens his grip on the control stick of his Bf 1096, eyes narrowing behind his frosted canopy. He leans forward, searching for the source of the light. His engine growls as he climbs through the bomber's contrails, vapor whipping over his wings. Unidentified fighters at hour 11 o'clock. Hi, Reinert calls out sharply over the radio. Unidentified. That word rarely appears in Luftwaffe intercept missions. The sky over Germany has long been a predictable chessboard: bombers, escorts, flak belts, and German fighters waiting to pounce. But these spakes above them, they are in the wrong place, at the wrong altitude, at the wrong time. Shuck squints.no. It can't be. But then the silhouette, sharp and sleek wings, gleaming fuselages, the sunlight flashing off bubble canopies, Mustangs, still escorting, still climbing. Deep inside Germany, Shuck feels something cold slip down his spine. This is not possible, Reinert mutters. How are they still here? But there's no time for disbelief. The Mustangs roll in, coming down with controlled fury, their Merlins screaming in the dive. For the first time in months, it is the Germans, not the American bombers, who are caught off guard. Captain Jim Browning picks out his target, a silver Bf-109 braking left. Desperate to climb into a better angle, he pushes the throttle forward. The Merlin's smooth hum becomes a sharp, rising howl. The Mustang surges. You can almost feel that acceleration in your chest the moment the Mustang stops being the toy the Germans mocked and becomes the predator they didn't expect. The distance closes in seconds. Shuck. Here's the first bursts crack past his canopy tight, disciplined, terrifyingly accurate. He yanks hard into a spiral climb. But something is wrong. The Mustang is matching him, not falling behind, not struggling in the thinner air. Matching, gaining. He tries again, rolling left, then diving, using every trick the Luftwaffe has perfected since 1940. But the American stays with him, locked in, as if the Mustang were reading his thoughts. Reinert watches from a distance and feels a shock he hasn't felt since the early days of the war. An enemy aircraft, outperforming the Bf-109 in the realm Germany once ruled. Altitude combat. This cannot be happening, he whispers into his mask. Then Browning squeezes the trigger. A burst of .50 caliber fire tears through Shuck's wingtip. Not a kill, just a warning shot, but enough to shake the German ace to his core. His aircraft vibrates violently as he forces it into a dive, abandoning the engagement. The Luftwaffe pilots scatter, scrambling for altitude or diving for survival, the sky erupting into swirling chaos. But everywhere they turn, a Mustang is there, faster, steadier, climbing like a machine possessed. The earlier laughter back in the command room feels distant now. Very distant. Reinert banks sharply to avoid Browning's wingman, feeling the compression on his control surfaces, the strain in the frame, the rising panic in his throat. This is not a toy, he says breathlessly. This is something else entirely. Above him, Browning steadies his Mustang and looks down at the disorganized German formation. The balance of the air war is shifting right here, in real time, before anyone on the ground even knows what's happening. And as more Mustangs appear through the bomber contrails, silver ghosts closing in from every direction, one thing becomes clear. For the first time, the Luftwaffe isn't hunting, it's being hunted. And what happens next will make even the most confident German ace question everything he thought he knew about the sky. The radio traffic becomes frantic, clipped bursts of panic from men who, until this moment, believed they owned the upper air. Reinert hears one voice shout, "Sie Cinderbrawl." They are everywhere. Another breaks mid-sentence, swallowed by static and fear. Far above the chaos, the Mustang formation fans out, diving, climbing, rolling with predatory precision. Captain Jim Browning pulls his aircraft into a shallow climb, leveling off just as ABF 109 darts beneath him. Its pilots are focused on escaping a bomber gunner to notice the danger above. A mistake, a fatal one. Browning eases the Mustang into a descending turn, moving into perfect firing position, but he doesn't shoot. Not yet. He stays patient, almost serene in the cold, thin air. The German pilot below him jerks left and right, trying to shake the B-17's tail gunners, unaware that another threat shadows him silently. The moment is cinematic to war machines. One unaware, one waiting. Then Browning sees it. The subtle widening of the 109's turn. The slight lift of the nose as the German prepares to climb. Now. Browning fires. The 50 South blaze with a deep, rhythmic thud, and the tracers walk straight into the 109's fuselage. Pieces of metal burst off the engine cowling. Smoke pours out in a long, desperate plume. But this isn't just a dogfight. This is a message down below. In the tightly packed cockpit, Oberfeldwebel Klaus Geller fights to keep his wounded fighter stable. His aircraft trembles as the engine seizes. He presses the transmit button on instinct. Mustangs. High altitude. Impossible. The rest is lost as his aircraft spirals downward, trailing smoke across the sky. Schuck sees the smoke trail and feels something unfamiliar claw at his chest. Fear. Not the sharp, instant fear of an exploding aircraft, not the instinctive fear of tracer rounds, but a deeper fear, the realization that the Luftwaffe may have just lost the one advantage it had left: control of altitude. 4 years, German fighters own the high sky. American Thunderbolts and early Mustangs could follow the bombers partway, but never deep enough, never high enough, never long enough. The German aces learned to wait until the escorts turned back, then strike with ruthless precision. But today, the escorts aren't turning back. They will reach Berlin, Reinert mutters, half in awe, half in dread, as he watches another Mustang climb past him, Predator ascending through cold blue water. The Luftwaffe pilots regroup best they can. Reinert pulls his 109 into formation with Schuck, both men breathing hard, both aircraft rattled from the encounter. What altitude are they holding? Schuck demands. They're at 28,000 and climbing. Reinert replies, disbelief leaking through the static. I've never seen an American fighter do that. Neither had any other German pilot. Below them, the bombers rumble eastward, confident for the first time, strengthened by the silver guardians surrounding them. The B-17 crews watch the swirling dogfights above, astonished as Mustangs dive and climb in maneuvers that early models could never have performed. A gunner aboard Liberty Bell mutters into his intercom, "Looks like the new boys brought angels with them." But to the Luftwaffe, these are not angels. They are harbingers. Even as Schuck and Reinert maneuver for another attack run, a flight of fresh Mustangs rises behind them, ghost-like, fast, silent until the last second. Reinert looks over his shoulder. 3 silver fighters, closing, fast. His breath catches. "Walter, they're on us." Schuck banks hard, but the Mustangs follow effortlessly, tightening the noose. One slides into position behind Reinert, wings steady, sunlight glinting off its guns. The German ace realizes the truth. In one brutal instant, the hunters of Europe have become the hunted. He dives, his engine screaming, as he pushes the aircraft to its limits. But the Mustang stays with him. Every move, every turn, every escape attempt, matched, shadowed, countered. Reinert single quotes as heart pounds as he wrestles the 109 through another desperate maneuver, because now he understands something that no one in the briefing room had imagined. This isn't the same Mustang they mocked. This is something new, something deadly. And the Luftwaffe has no idea how to stop it. But the most devastating revelation of the day is still minutes away high above Berlin, where the true reach of the P-51 is about to rewrite the fate of the air war. The bomber stream presses deeper into Germany, engines thundering as the morning sun climbs higher. Below them, the German countryside passes like a patchwork of winter colors, grey rivers, pale fields, distant towns still unaware that history is shifting above them. Inside the cockpit of his B-17, Harold Minton wipes frost from the inside of his window and peers upward. He sees them sleek silver shapes weaving between the contrails, sunlight glinting off their wings like they're made of glass. Mustangs, still with them, still escorting. We're over 2 hours in, Minton says through the intercom, disbelief thick in his voice. They haven't left us yet. Before anyone can answer, Browning's voice crackles on the escort frequency. Stay tight. We're taking you all the way, all the way. Words no bomber crew had ever heard from an escort fighter. Not this deep, not this far. This changes everything. High above Berlin, at Luftwaffe headquarters, General Lieutenant Adolf Galland steps onto the balcony outside his office. He looks to the east, frowning at the glimmer of silver approaching across the horizon. More bombers, more fire, more destruction creeping toward the heart of Germany. But then he spots something else thin. Bright contrails moving faster than the bombers. Too fast. Too high. Escorts. Impossible. The American fighters should have turned back an hour ago. Galland reaches for his binoculars, the cold metal trembling slightly in his hands from the morning chill. He adjusts the focus, and then his jaw goes slack. Silver shapes, sleek, high altitude, closing in with the bomber stream. Mustangs, over Berlin. His stomach tightens. The mockery, the dismissals, the jokes about America's toy fighter, all of it collapses in an instant. He lowers the binoculars and mutters to no one, "We have underestimated them." Completely. Back in the sky, a fresh wave of Bf-109s and FW-190s scrambles from airfields around the capital, engines roaring as pilots race to intercept the American bombers. Among them is Lieutenant Dieter Hogan, a young pilot barely 21, who had been told repeatedly that American escorts would never reach this far. But as he climbs, he sees the truth for himself. 3 Mustangs slicing across the blue, closing on him with quiet, deadly confidence. He radios his wingman. "I thought they couldn't reach Berlin." His wingman replies, voice tight, "They can now." The Mustangs pounce. Hogan pulls his aircraft into a steep climb, hoping to escape upward, but the American fighters stay glued to him. Their climb rate is astonishing, smooth, relentless, impossible. The Merlin engine roars behind him, a living beast. He feels panic rise. He dives, but the Mustang dives faster. He rolls, but the Mustang rolls tighter. He pulls back to climb again, his last gamble, and the Mustang climbs higher still. The sky feels smaller now. The Luftwaffe feels cornered. Hogan's breath fogs his mask as he whispers, "This isn't a fighter. It's a predator." A burst of .50 caliber fire slices above his canopy close enough to rip away a piece of his antenna. Just a warning, a terrifying one. He breaks off the fight, heart hammering, and flees toward the clouds, realizing the truth. The Germans no longer control the altitude. They no longer dictate the terms of battle. The Americans do. Deep inside the bomber formation, tail gunners watch the new battle unfold with disbelief. Mustangs. Over Berlin, one mutters, "I never thought I'd see this day." Up front, Minton wipes his canopy again. "If they can bring us in, what else can they do?" There's a moment brief, weightless, breathtaking when the bomber crews realize they are witnessing the beginning of the end for the Luftwaffe. Because if the Mustang can escort them here, it can escort them anywhere. Browning banks his Mustang across the formation, scanning for threats. The air is thick with smoke trails and drifting metal shards. But the bombers remain intact, protected. Safe. He whispers to himself, not a toy anymore, not ever again. Far below, in Berlin, air raid sirens begin to wail, an echo of defeat carried through the streets. And high above them, the Mustangs carve their place into history. But the true impact of this mission, the realization that Germany can no longer defend its own capital, hasn't yet reached the Luftwaffe command. That revelation is only moments away. In the command bunker beneath Tempelhof airfield, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and the tremble of distant explosions. Officers hunch over radio sets, their sleeves rolled up, their expressions tight with the strain of a war slipping through their fingers. The telephone lines buzz with overlapping voices, urgent, confused, desperate. A young signals officer rips off his headset and turns to the operations table. Sir, reports confirm escort fighters. American escort fighters. Over the capital, the room stills. General Galland looks up sharply. Repeat that, he orders. The officer hesitates. He knows how impossible it sounds, how dangerous. But he nods. Mustangs, sir. Multiple groups. They're with the bombers. Over Berlin. The silence that follows is not shock, it is dread. For months, German intelligence had insisted that American fighters were limited by fuel range, that the P-47s would turn back early, that the early Mustangs lacked the ceiling and entrance to accompany the bombers to the heart of the Reich. But now, the new truth hangs in the air like a death sentence. The escorts have arrived, and the sky is no longer Germany's. Galland steps toward the map table, gripping the edge with white knuckles. The reality hits him with crushing force. If the bombers can be protected all the way in, then Germany's factories, refineries, and war machine can be torn apart piece by piece, without mercy. He exhales slowly, almost a whisper. We have lost air superiority. Not in theory, not in projections, not in some future scenario. The staff warned him about. Today. Right now, at this very moment, above Berlin, the battle swirls like a storm. Captain Jim Browning pulls his Mustang up through a tight climbing turn, feeling the G-force press him into his seat. His canopy is streaked with ice crystals, his oxygen mask stiff and cold. But the Merlin engine roars with effortless power. He breaks through a thin cloud layer and spots a fleeing FW-190 trying to escape west. Not today, he murmurs. He rolls and dives. The German pilot, a veteran named Arto Krom, sees him coming too late. He banks hard left to shake the American. His wings shudder. His engine coughs. Browning tightens his turn effortlessly. The gulf in performance is no longer speculation. It's fact. Brutal, humiliating fact. Krom slams his hand on the throttle, shouting into the radio. These new Mustangs, how are they still climbing? Static answers him. Browning fires a controlled burst and tears through the 190's tailplane. Krom ejects what little dignity he has left and dives straight down, lucky to escape alive. The Mustang rolls upright again, wings glinting like cold silver in the clear blue sky all around him. The Luftwaffe breaks contact and withdraws, not out of strategy, out of necessity. Their aircraft can't keep up. Their fuel is running low, and their confidence, once the backbone of German air dominance, is cracking. Inside a damaged Bf-109, Reinert breathes hard, sweat freezing inside his mask. He has never fled a fight in his career. Never, not once. But today, he runs over the radio. His voice cracks. Walter, They've outflown us. At altitude, at range, everywhere. Shuck, circling low in a desperate attempt to regroup what's left of his squadron, says nothing. Because he has seen what Reinert has seen. He knows what it means. He watches the Mustangs wheel across the sky. They own it confident, coordinated, deadly. And the truth he had pushed aside, the fear he tried to bury, rises from the cold air around him. The Luftwaffe cannot win this war of attrition. Not anymore. When the bombing run begins, Browning escorts the B-17s through flak bursts that stain the sky back. Berlin roars with fire. Anti-aircraft guns hammer desperately, but the Mustang screen remains tight. German fighters that try to break through intercepted instantly, driven off with ruthless efficiency. From the ground, civilians look up and see something terrifying: American fighters over their capital. Not lone strays, not a daring raid. A formation. A promise of more to come. Hours later, as the bombers turn westward for the long trip home, the Mustangs turn with them, still vigilant, still strong. A B-17 waist gunner leans against his machine gun, looking at the escort outside his window. They're still here, he whispers. All the way in, all the way out. The Mustang pilot outside gives a small, casual wing rock in acknowledgement, like it's nothing. But to the bomber crew, it is everything. The terror of unescorted missions, the helplessness, the loneliness, the brutal losses feels distant. For the first time, hope rides with them. Hope in a machine the Germans once laughed at. Far behind them, in the halls of the Luftwaffe command, Galland stares at the updated casualty reports. His officers avoid his eyes. No one speaks. No one dares. Because now everyone understands the full consequence of the day's mission. The moment the Merlin-powered Mustang reached Berlin and returned safely, the outcome of the air war was effectively sealed. The laughter died today, and in its place came fear. Fear of a fighter that would never again be called a toy. Fear of a sky that no longer belonged to Germany. Fear of a war they now knew they could not win. For the Luftwaffe, this was not just a defeat. It was the beginning of the end.